Last week, in an interview with Chris Hayes on MSNBC, Kamala Harris was asked whether or not ICE should be abolished, and her answer essentially was no, that they should not be abolished. Now, this week, in an interview with Jake Tapper on CNN, Bernie Sanders had the chance to show Kamala Harris how it's done, how you answer that question, how you respond when someone asks you whether or not you support the abolition of ICE. And what did Bernie Sanders do? He actually disappointed. So Bernie Sanders dodged the question. He did not say whether or not he would support the abolition of ICE. Take a look.
More than a dozen Democratic congressional candidates reportedly support abolishing or defunding ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, including candidate for governor of New York, Cynthia Nixon, who tweeted this week, quote, ICE is a terrorist organization and its egomaniacal leader is Donald Trump. Sign our petition to hashtag abolish ICE. Do you agree that ICE should be abolished?
I think what we need is to create policies which deal with immigration in a rational way. And a rational way is not locking children up in detention centers or separating them from their mothers. What we need is Trump to sit down with members of Congress and work on a rational program which deals with a serious issue.
That was a dodge. The correct answer, Bernie, is yes. That's it. That's all you gotta say. Yes. And with Occupy ICE protests popping up across the country and Democratic lawmakers like Earl Blumenauer and Mark Pocan advocating for ICE to be abolished, I think that the trajectory on this issue is clear. I mean, you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez win her primary against a corporate Democrat, someone poised to be one of the next leaders of the Democratic Party, running on a platform to abolish ICE. So I think that Bernie Sanders has got to understand that abolishing ICE is not only the correct policy position, but it's the morally right thing to do in the face of the numerous abuses of this particular government agency. And the problem here is that he's kind of setting himself up to be outflanked from the left in 2020 in the event someone else does choose to run and say that they do support the abolition of ICE. And in fact, since we've been putting pressure on Kamala Harris, guess what's happening? She has started to change her position on this subject. So as Yahoo News reports, Senator Kamala Harris of California has reconsidered her position on the agency. Harris, who is also viewed as a potential 2020 candidate, said Sunday during an interview with NBC News that we need to probably think about starting from scratch in immigration enforcement. Back in March, Harris said during an MSNBC interview that ICE has a purpose, ICE has a role, ICE should exist. So if Kamala Harris can change her position on this, then so can Bernie. And the thing is that I don't just want Bernie Sanders to say and declare that he supports abolishing ICE. I want him to mean it. I don't want him to just take this stance for purposes of political expediency. I want him to understand why abolishing ICE is the right thing to do. And unlike most lawmakers, he actually listens to what we have to say. If we haven't kept continuous pressure on him when it comes to Israel-Palestine, he still might be saying things that sound a lot like corporate Democrats on that subject. You have to let lawmakers know what position is the appropriate position, and you have to change their minds. That's the thing that's important to me. You have to change their minds. I want Bernie Sanders to want to abolish ICE and not just say he wants to abolish ICE. But I don't think that people who support Bernie should just settle and accept his non-answer here, because Bernie Sanders is usually one of the only individuals in Congress that is consistently on the right side of every issue in history, and he has foresight, perhaps more so than any other member of Congress. So if you genuinely support Bernie Sanders, then here's what you've got to do. You've got to change his mind. Bernie Sanders is not above criticism. He's not perfect. And if you support Bernie and you want him to be the best candidate in 2020, which he already is, but if you really want him to win, change his mind, make him more progressive, because I don't think we're backing down. I'm not backing down on this issue. Abolishing ICE is the right thing to do. So let's do it. Let's convince Bernie. And I hope that he'll listen. So continue to tweet at him and email him. And I believe that if he hears from us, he'll do the right thing. He'll rethink his stance here.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.